lovers of whiskey and watchers of YouTube. I am the Malt Activist and I'm back with another cool list. And this list is my top 10 whiskeys that you can buy for between 50 and 100 pounds. So last week I dropped a video which was my top 10 whiskeys that you could find for under 50 pounds. Now the thing with lists is, or opinions if you like, are like assholes, right? Everybody has one and they think theirs is the best. Which is kind of the case for me as well. But then of course a lot of the people, started putting in their suggestions and they were absolutely right and there's nothing wrong with it. For example, I think I missed out on the Bunnahabhain 12. That should have been on the in the under 50, which I missed. But then I'm not a huge fan of the Bunnahabhain 12, to be honest, and it also didn't really show up on the radar, so I don't know why I missed it out, but I did. But then there were these other comments that also started coming in, which were, what about whiskeys that are above 50 pounds or under 100 pounds, right? And that got me thinking. I was like, okay, that's another good list to make. Now this is what happened. This is what really surprised me, was when I was doing my research for the under 50 list, it was really quite easy. I went to like 3 or 4 different retailers, online retailers in the UK. I filtered all the single malts under 50 in my search results, and I picked what I thought were the best, and then did a cross check, and I came up with my top 10 list with an average price. And that was kind of easy to do because I could really pick out the ones that I thought were really good. But when I started looking for whiskeys that were over 50 and 100 pounds, there was an exponential growth, like an explosion of the number of whiskeys that you can buy between that range, which are fantastic. Right? And I'm not even talking about the independent bottles, which, by the way, once we start doing that, crazy, and just regular distillery original bottlings between 50 and 100 pounds. They were so many, and the value for money just skyrocketed. Like, it became so good, and like, for example, I think there's more than 4 or 5 times the number of whiskeys in this 50 to 100 pound range than there are in the 0 to 50 or under 50 range. It is crazy. Like, when I was shortlisting my under 50 whiskeys, I probably had like 20 and then I whittled them down to 10. But this one, I had maybe like 50 or 60 whiskeys that I thought were worth buying, and then I had to whittle it down to 10. It was unbelievable. And so I think if you loosen your purse strings a bit and hit that 60, 70, 80 pound mark for your whiskeys, you will have a far greater variety of whiskeys to choose from as compared to the under 50. So yeah, that's what I found. I also did find some whiskeys that I thought were not good value for money. They just happened to increase in price in the last couple of years. And I know that, the distillery's not really done anything worthwhile to elevate that price, but I think it's maybe just down to the online retailer. And sometimes whiskeys that start trending and become popular, retailers will bump up those prices. So I don't know the real reason, but it is what it is. One of the things I wanted to make sure on my list was a minimum ABV of 46%. And that is just my personal benchmark for what I think whiskeys should be served at. So I disregarded everything that was around the 43% mark and focused on the 46%. There's one whiskey that I think is just slightly less or slightly more, I don't remember. But anyway, so 46% was my threshold. And there are some whiskeys which may not necessarily be good value for money, but that's not the list we're making. We're not talking about value for money. We're just saying what whiskeys you can find between the 50 and 100 range. And I mean, if that's the price, then it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first whiskey is an all-time favorite of mine. It is the ARDBEG UIGEADAIL. and it is available on an average for £51.25. Now, the reason I love this whiskey is because A, I'm an ARDBEG fanboy. Thank you. I think you already knew that. But B, it comes at a nice strength of 54.2%. And if you're an allophile like me, then these are the flavors that you want to sink your teeth into. And this dark sherry casks that they use to mature the UIGEADAIL in, and then they serve it at this tasty 54.2% ABV. It is, in my opinion, the quintessential no-brainer Islay whiskey that you can get your hands on. And for this price, I don't think it's bad. I will, however, mention that the earlier Oogies were just absolutely phenomenal. And the reason I have it on my list is because I had this eureka moment drinking this, I think it was a 2010 or 11 Oogie, I'm not 100% sure, but it was one of the earlier ones. And I remember drinking that and going, oh my God, I had no idea whiskeys could taste like that. And I fell in love, and I very distinctly remember where I was sitting and what I was doing when I drank it, and I had that moment, that experience. So that's why, as a tip of my hat to ARDBEG, who I love, but having said that, it's still a damn fine whiskey. If you haven't tried it, do get your hands on it. The ARDBEG UIGEADAIL for £51.25. Our next whiskey, also a cult classic from GLENFARCLAS. This is the 105. And this comes in at 60% natural cask strength. I love this about this whiskey, which means that they had to do some very skillful cask manipulation to make sure that the natural cask strength of this whiskey was 60% on the nose, which is 105 imperial proof, which is what this whiskey is called. Now, again, similar to the Oogie, I feel that the quality as compared to the earlier batches is not as good as it was. However, in its own right, it is still a damn fine whiskey, and I think at £53.75, it's a quintessential sherry bomb that I think you need to have on your shelf. The fact that it's at 60% means you get more bang for your buck. You keep adding a little bit of water, and next thing you know, you have an extra 25-30% more alcohol worth drinking. But if you haven't tried the GLENFARCLAS 105, it has a cult status, and it is a definite try to make sure that you check off that box of whiskeys that you have to try before you die. And the 105 is one of those. The Glengoyne cask strength is another one that I've put on this list purely because it's a cask strength whiskey, and this comes in at 59.2% ABV, which is amazing. I think this is the batch 8 if I'm not mistaken, yeah, I think it is the batch 8, and it's selling for about £53.95. So again, I think not a bad price for a cask strength whiskey. The first Glengoyne cask strength I had was, I think, the batch 1, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Yeah, around that time, and it was amazing. Very lovely whiskey, nicely sherried. And served at a beautiful natural cask strength. I don't remember that batch, but the newer batch is coming at a very high 59.2%, which means, again, good value for money in terms of the amount of alcohol you have. You have an extra 20-30% if you add water to it, I think, and very tasty, extremely tasty. I wish this had an age statement, but it doesn't. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is, However, mighty fine whiskey, something to consider. The Balvenie 14 Week of Peat. I don't have this one on my shelf, unfortunately, but I've had the pleasure of tasting it at a few friends' houses, and I was very happily surprised. I remember they had a Balvenie 17, which was matured in peated casks. However, the literature behind the Balvenie 14 is that for 1 week they heavily peat their barley at Balvenie, and then this is what this whiskey is made out of. And this 14-year-old is quite tasty. It's you can get it for about £55, 90p, and it's bottled at 48.3% ABV. So nice, decent ABV on this. I think a fairly decent price. It's a 14-year-old whiskey. I appreciate the fact that it has an age statement on it. And what I love is that it has the character of the distillery, the Balvenie character, but it is sort of enveloped in this nice heathery peat and smoke that comes with it. And then together it's just a phenomenal combination. So this is, I think, a must-have. BENROMACH Cask Strength Vintage 2009, making it roughly 10 to 11 years old when it's in the bottle. This one retails at £62.95p and comes in at a whopping 57.2% ABV. Again, a great cask strength whiskey. I actually fell in love with the BENROMACH 10 100 proof, which is the old school version. It had an age statement on it, and I remember when I first drank it, it blew my mind how good that whiskey was. It's a peated Speyside whiskey. Well, not massively peated, but just nicely peated, and it was served at a lovely 57%, roughly 57%, which is what the 100 proof is, oh, the flavors and the sherry maturation was just so on point, and I fell in love with that 10-year-old cask strength. They've changed the formula and the recipe slightly. That now I think they bottle it as a vintage now, if I'm not mistaken. So this one is the 2009 vintage, and normally is a 10-year-old whiskey, bottled in 2020, yeah, so 10 years old. And like I said, you know, available for £62.95p, bottled at 57.2%. Again, a fantastic whiskey to have. I think the earlier batch, the original BENROMACH 10 100 proof, is probably the standard to reach, but you know, on its own, this one is still a mighty fine dram. What can I say about the LAPHROAIG 10 cask strength series that I have not already said? If you see any of my videos, you know I'm a massive fan of not only the distillery, but especially this cask strength series. They're up to batch 13 now, and this batch 13 available for £73.95p and bottled at a lovely 57.9%. So again, good value for money in terms of the alcohol, extra alcohol that you get in that high ABV. And what I love about this series is that from day one, from batch one, the quality has been just phenomenal. You know, just consistently so above average. The cask selection, they're all first fill bourbon matured and then bottled at cask strength. So the cask selection, the maturation, the flavor profiles, and they're so unique. Each batch has its own very distinct flavor profile, but my god, it retains the distillery character, but they have their own individual nuances, and every whiskey from this series is phenomenal, and I urge you to get your hands on the LAPHROAIG 10. Now this one, it's so good that I can't even tell you. This is the Talisker 18 for £75.95p and bottled just a smidge under 46%, but I had to make this exclusion. So this is a bottle at 45.8%, and I think that is the right ABV for this whiskey. I don't imagine it could be anything else, and it is so, I hate to use the word smooth, I'm not gonna say that, but it's so flavorful, it's so distinctive, it's so unique, very Talisker, but then has its own 18-year-old maturity that comes with it and rounds off the flavor profile, and I love it. You know, it used to be hard to find, but for nowadays I can see that it's quite readily available, which is good, and it's 18 years old. That's a great age statement, you know, 18, and for it to be available for £75.95p, I think it's an absolute steal. It is a fantastic whiskey, and I 100% recommend that you should have it on your shelf. The LEDAIG 18, yeah, this one flies under the radar, man. And if you don't know about it, I think you should. And I got first introduced to the LEDAIG 18. I was lucky enough to be invited to a LEDAIG 42 tasting. Yes, a LEDAIG 42 tasting, and of course, which was the start of the evening. However, to cleanse our palates, we also got to taste the LEDAIG 18, and I thought that was better than the 42, in my opinion. So LEDAIG, made at the Tobermory distillery, and if you didn't know, it's pronounced LEDAIG, not LEDAIG, as I used to call it the first few years of my life. So LEDAIG 18, distilled at Tobermory distilleries on the Isle of Mull. Yeah, it's one of those whiskeys, like I said, that's been flying under the radar, and for £79, 90p, bottled at 46.3%. I think it's something that you should try and you know, stick your nose in and see what happens. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Now, I had a hard time including the ABERLOUR Abuna on this list purely because I think the price has completely skyrocketed. You know, it's now available for £79, 95p, and bottled at 61.2%. My beef with this whiskey right now is, first of all, it's a non-age statement whiskey. I know from a lot of the literature that I've been reading that the average age of this whiskey is between 5 to 7 years old. Granted, it's cask strength and all of that, but I think this price has just been increased based on the fact that, you know, a lot of people want to try it. I think the ABERLOUR Abuna is a fantastic dram. It's the quintessential sherry bomb, if you like, you know, served at cask strength. Again, earlier batches were much better. However, and the only reason I've included it on this list is because if you haven't tried it, then you really should. I would highly recommend splitting the cost with a friend to make it a little more pocket friendly, because I think spending £80 on a non-age statement whiskey, even if it's an ABERLOUR Abuna bottled at 61.2%, I think is a bit much. But it is what it is, you know. This is not a video about value for money. This is just telling you what whiskeys I think you should try between the 50 and 100 pound range. So I think the ABERLOUR Abuna is one of them. And finally, the GLENDRONACH 18-year-old ALLARDICE. I really like this whiskey. I remember drinking it the first time around many years ago, and I was absolutely smitten with it, and I was like, wow, what a fantastic dram. And then that actually got me introduced to a lot of the other things that GLENDRONACH was doing, especially with the single cask bottling, and I sort of fell in love with the distillery. But this is the one that I think is the flagship that's carrying the mantle for GLENDRONACH, in my opinion. Not the 15-year-old sherry revival. I think it's the 18-year-old that really does it for you. It is on the pricier side. This is probably our most expensive whiskey on this list at £97, 94p, bottled at an even 46%. However, I think this is worth buying just to understand really good whiskey making, you know. And I think this 18-year-old GLENDRONACH is a classic example of good old-fashioned whiskey making. Yes, slightly on the higher side in my opinion, but it does come with an age statement of 18 years, which is no joke. So again, highly recommended. Pick one up for your shelf. You will not be disappointed. So there you have it. This was a tough one, but I think we got through it. My top 10 whiskeys, which you can buy between 50 and 100 pounds. I am sure I've left out a ton of whiskeys, but I thought these were the ones that kinda were the best of the lot. I'll read through some of the stuff that I've left out. Like I left out the Lagavulin 8. The BALVENIE 12 single barrel, the Glenlivet 15 French Oak Reserve, fantastic whiskey, the Glenallachie 15, what else? Lagavulin 16 also I left out. Can you imagine? I left out the LAPHROAIG PX triple cask, I left that out. I left out the Kalela 18, I left that out as well. The Highland Park full volume, I left that out also. So this was a combination of, you know, whiskeys that I've personally tried that I really like. Minimum 46%. I try to include as many age statements in here as possible. What else? And what I thought was maybe kind of value for money. But again, value for money is a very subjective thing, and I don't want to get into it. So it is what it is. So there you go, man. I listened to you, and I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed this video and this list. I hope this list can help you make any future purchases. And yeah, thank you. And I'm the Malt Activist. Until next time, peace.